I'm back. You know what? I think I smeared some of my makeup earlier. Actually, a good chunk of it, like all of my eyeliner. I had to go back and retouch it. It probably looks better than it did before. I don't know, but I can tell one eye has a little bit more on than the other. Whatever. Interesting interlude. Yeah, so I'm back. I want to read some more from The Art of the Deal. Tomorrow is election night. I won't be live for that. So thought it would be nice to just kind of get one last in before all of that mess. And obviously the author, maybe not writer, but the man behind the book is currently the Republican nominee for president. So it's kind of exciting to be reading this book at this time. Hello, Stacy. It's Terri Strange. I think Strange, is that Italian for strange? I haven't had my ticker going. I love my little ticker. It makes me feel like I'm the news. What you doing? What was that? What was that? He's been freaking out a little bit tonight. Hopefully he did quiet down a little. But I swear, as soon as I got ready to go live, or, as I was preparing to go live, wrapping up some organizing I was doing, he started meowing his little head off. I'm like, oh, here we go. So we'll see how he intervenes tonight. Hello, Keysmo. Hello, Rome 13. No. What you want? So in addition to getting all the weird text messages, I've been getting a lot of phone calls out of Arizona. So I have an Arizona number because I lived there for a couple of years. And that was the time where my phone broke, and then at that same time my arm got broken. I've talked to you guys about that big accident I was in. Well, anyway, I ended up having to get a new phone with a new carrier at that time. Or 6 months later, because I didn't even bother getting a new phone at that time. I had a landline and I was pretty much stuck in the house. Okay, wow. What you want? You don't want to cuddle. You want to cuddle? What is this? What is this? Does every kiss begin with K? Do that begin with K? Yeah, how come you never give me no jewelry? You never give me no jewelry. Anyway, what am I got? Anyway, crazy election calls coming out of Arizona, Phoenix, San Mateo. How old is he? How old are you? He's 9 years old, y'all. 9 years old. 9 years together we've had. They're the best years of our lives. You're going to be 10 next year. Oh, my God. You're going to be 10? How are you going to be 10? Oh, we're going to have to do a special birthday for you, aren't we? I'm going to have a special birthday, and he's going to have a special birthday next year. Yeah, he's very baby. He has a kitten face. He does, yes, he's very handsome. He's very good looking. Very good looking child, yes. Best kitty in the world, aren't you? A little Nero interlude before we get started. He's very dear. But yeah, he's been emotional. He's been crying, wanting his mama, crying for his mama. Oh my. Doing that mess that cats do. Okay, you want some lap? Do you want to get on my lap? Come on. I'm going to cross my legs. You can get on my lap. Come on. The lap is open. Get on the lap, dude. So this is our life together, me and Nero. Don't you be putting your butt on cam. I don't want your butt on cam. Sorry, guys. You can't have no cat butt on this cam. Nope. Honey, if you're not going to get on my lap, if you're going to... No. No. Got the book in front of the butt now. Sweetie. What you doing? You're not even comfy up here. Come on. Figure it out. Either move or get down. Either get on my lap or get down. I'm not playing with you. Okay. Hello, Mr. Mad. His eyes are emeralds. Yeah, he does have pretty eyes, don't you, sweetie? I'm sorry, you're going to have to entertain yourself. Go play with your toys or something. Or bring me one of your toys and I'll play with you with it. He knows he can do that, but he doesn't. Y'all ready to get back into the book? We're in the middle of chapter 7. And consequently, all of the photographs in the book have come up in this chapter. So why don't we go through that? So there's his father, Fred Trump, and then his family. I assume these are him and his siblings. Oh, isn't he sweet? This is him as a little boy and his brothers and his sisters. He's going to bring me a dead raccoon in the McDonald's. I don't know if I want to get through all of these exactly. And here's a nice photo of him at Military Academy. Remember, we were reading about that. There's Ivana as a young fashion model. They did their honeymoon in Acapulco. How sweet. Oh, here he and his wife are. He and Ivana are with some crippled children. Isn't that nice? Yeah, some of these photos. There he is with Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan. Ronald and Nancy meeting Donald Trump. Wow. Any other interesting photos? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, shout out to the crippled children. I thought that was sweet. I was like, wait, that one's in a wheelchair and that one's got, what are those called? Crutches under her armpits. And who knows what's wrong with the other one. Shout out to the crippled people generally. Any crippled people in chat? He really has, Keysmo. He's lived a full life. But, honestly, if you look at your life, you've probably done a lot of things too. The art of the steal. Ooh, yeah, some of it. All right, let's dig back in. If any press or celebrity helped promote Trump Tower, I suspect it was one about a sale that never actually occurred. Shortly after we began selling apartments, I got a call from a reporter asking whether or not it was true that Prince Charles had purchased an apartment in Trump Tower. It so happened that this was the week when Prince Charles and Lady Diana had gotten married, and they were, at that moment, the most celebrated couple in the world. Our policy was not to comment about sales, and that's what I told this reporter. In other words, I refused to confirm or deny the rumor. Apparently, the reporter then decided to call Buckingham Palace. By this time, the royal couple had left for their honeymoon and they were out on the yacht Britannia. So the Buckingham Palace spokesman said just what I had. They couldn't confirm or deny the rumor. That was all the media needed. In the absence of a denial, the story that the royal couple was considering buying an apartment in Trump Tower became front page news all over the world. It certainly didn't hurt us, but I had to laugh to myself. Just a month earlier, Prince Charles had come to New York for a visit, and the IRA had come out in force to protest. As Prince Charles walked into Lincoln Center for a concert one evening, hundreds of protesters stood outside hissing and screaming and throwing bottles. It had to be a frightening experience for him, and I can't imagine it left Prince Charles with a great desire to take an apartment in New York City. Yeah, shout out to the militant Irish who are a big part of New York City. Also, while Trump Tower is a great building, I suspect Prince Charles would find it very hard to get used to any apartment after growing up in Buckingham Palace. With so much demand, our marketing strategy was to play hard to get. It was a reverse sales technique. If you sit in an office with a contract in your hand, eager to make the first deal that comes along, it's quite obvious to people that the apartments aren't in demand. We were never in a rush to sign a contract. When people came in, we'd show them the model apartments, sit down and talk, and if they were interested, explain that there was a waiting list for the most desirable apartments. The more unattainable the apartments seemed, the more people wanted them. I actually watched a video yesterday or maybe the day before of Ivana Trump showing a reporter the model apartments in the Trump Towers. I mean, it wasn't just that, or in the Trump Tower, like there were a number of things they talked about. They started talking about the shops, and then the reporter went with Ivana and interviewed her about the actual apartments, and they were beautiful. Like the model apartments they had set up were just like stunning, and I'd love to live in one of those, honestly. Just looking at them, I'm like, oh, the views and the just setup is so comfortable and so divine, you know. It just, yeah, lovely. And then they got to talking to Trump through the latter part of it, to which I turned off because I was mostly interested in the apartments. But anyway, maybe I'll pull that up and we can watch it at some point. Shout out to Mr. Mad's Robot Back. I love Charles. Don't say anything nasty about Charles. He's had a very busy life. Point Fire. How do you not love Charles? He's so endearing. Well, anyway, let's continue. As demand grew, I kept raising the prices, 12 times in all. We started out selling for much more than Olympic Tower, which until then had been the most expensive building in New York. Within a short period, we'd almost doubled the price for the best apartments on the highest floors. People were buying 2-bedroom apartments for $1.5 million, but before we finished construction, we'd sold a huge majority of the apartments. The cycles of buyers at Trump Tower became something of a barometer of what was going on in the international economy. At first, the big buyers were the Arabs. When oil prices were going through the roof, then of course oil prices fell and the Arabs went home. In 1981, we got a sudden wave of buyers from France. I wasn't sure why, but then I realized the reason was that Francois Mitterrand had been elected president, and anyone smart and wealthy realized immediately that Mitterrand was going to hurt the French economy. It wasn't just that he was a socialist and that he began nationalizing companies, it was also that he turned out to be a dangerous man. What can you say about a guy who goes around selling nuclear technology to the highest bidder? It's the lowest anyone can stoop. Oh my. So he got opinions even back then. International opinions. It's so interesting. Yeah, he must have had a lot of international connections for a large portion of his life. When you think about that, he knows about all, the economic happenings in the Middle East and France, and how it impacted his business. Well, nobody's tougher than Anne in that family. I mean, I think Anne got, I don't know, she's probably the toughest one. I don't know what else to say. But I still love Charles. What lines will be long? Oh, yeah, for those who have to go in and vote in person, good luck. Shout out to the people who have to go do it in person. I've never had to. I don't know. Okay, let's see. After the European cycle, we got the South Americans and the Mexicans when the dollar was weak and their economies still seemed fairly strong. Then when inflation set in, their currencies were devalued and their governments tried to restrict the outflow of cash. That cycle ended. During the past several years, we've had two new groups buying. One is American, specifically Wall Street types, brokers and investment bankers who've made instant fortunes during the bull market frenzy. It's ridiculous when you think about it. You get stockbrokers, barely 25 years old, who suddenly earn $600,000 a year because clients they've never met call up and say, "I'll take 50,000 shares of General Motors." The broker pushes a button on a computer and presto, he's got a huge commission. As soon as the stock market falls out, which it will, because it too runs in cycles, most of these guys will be out on the street looking for work. The other new buyers are the Japanese. I have great respect for what the Japanese have done with their economy, but for my money, they're often very difficult to do business with. For starters, they come in to see you in groups of 6 or 8 or even 12. Oh my God, has anyone ever had to deal with Japanese businessmen? It is wild. Oh my. I've had to serve them, getting them coffee. But I remember, when I worked at the airport as a barista years ago, I remember the Japanese businessmen were always, amazing because they'd give you a very simple order, but it would be a very difficult order. They'd come up to you, one guy would pay, and he'd say something like, 14 small mochas. And you just be like, all right. And then you're like, oh, snap, we got to get out 14 small mochas in one order. Meanwhile, the queue we have is massive. But we did it, y'all. Oh, Mr. Mad's getting cozy tonight. And so you've got to convince all of them to make any given deal. You may succeed with 1 or 2 or 3, but it's far harder to convince all 12. I imagine so. In addition, they rarely smile, and they are so serious that they don't make doing business fun. Fortunately, they have a lot of money to spend, and they seem to like real estate. What's unfortunate is that for decades now, they have become wealthier in large measure by screwing the United States with a self-serving trade policy that our political leaders have never been able to fully understand or counteract. Again, American Small, Mr. Mad. Is this PG rated? My goodness. I think so. Hello to Calvin in the chat as well. Calvin's joined us. Good little group tonight. Okay. See, look at the insight he has about the, economy and how Americans are getting screwed. Like even here in 1986 or 87 when this book was published. Because the 263 apartments in Trump Tower proved to be so desirable, I decided to keep a dozen or so off the market, much the way a hotel operator always holds a few choice rooms free for emergencies. It was a way of keeping options open, particularly my own. Originally, I decided to take one of the 3 penthouse triplexes on the top floors, about 12,000 square feet in all for my family. We moved in at the end of 1983. I had offers as high as $10 million for each of the 2 apartments adjoining mine, but I resisted selling them, figuring I might ultimately want more space myself. It proved true sooner rather than later. In the middle of 1985, I got an invitation from Adnan Khashoggi, a Saudi Arabian and billionaire at the time, to come to his apartment in Olympic Tower. I went, and while I didn't particularly go for the apartment, I was impressed by the huge size of its rooms. Specifically, it had the biggest living room I'd ever seen. I had plenty of space in my triplex, but I figured, what the hell? Why shouldn't I have exactly the apartment I wanted, particularly when I built the whole building? Oh, y'all are so, I don't know. I don't know. I decided to take over one of the other apartments on the top 3 floors and combine it with mine. It has taken almost 2 years to renovate, but I don't believe there is any apartment anywhere in the world that can touch it. And while I can't honestly say I need an 80-foot living room, I do get a kick out of having one. Successful as we were in selling the Trump Tower apartments to the top buyers, we did at least as well in attracting the best retailers to the atrium. It began with when Osprey, a London-based store that sells the finest crystal, jewelry, and antiques, selected the atrium for its first branch in 200 years of operation. At first, they took a small store in the atrium. Business was so good that they have since expanded to a much larger space. Quality, of course, attracts more quality. The next thing we knew, we had leases with many of the world's top retailers: Osprey, Charles Jourdan, Bucatelli, Cartier, Martha, Harry Winston, and many others. Yeah, yes, Anunnaki. Do you think the Epic of Gilgamesh is about the Anunnaki? Maybe a little bit. It didn't hurt, of course, that in April 1983, just after the atrium opened, we got a good review from Paul Goldberger, who by then had replaced Ada Louise Huxtable as architecture critic of the Times. The review was headlined, "Atrium in Trump Tower is a pleasant surprise." It began by saying, in effect, that other critics had been wrong. The atrium, Goldberger wrote, is turning out to be a much more pleasant addition to the cityscape than the architectural oddsmakers would have had it. The review went on to say that the atrium may well be the most pleasant interior public space to be completed in New York in some years. It is warm, luxurious, and even exhilarating. In every way more welcoming than the public arcades and atriums that have preceded it in buildings like Olympic Tower, the Galleria, and Citicorp Center. That review had 2 positive effects. First, it reinforced the feeling among the retailers in the atrium and the people who'd purchased apartments in Trump Tower that they'd made the best choice. But second, and more important, it helps bring more shoppers to the atrium. They, of course, were ultimately the key to its success. The odd thing is that no one could ever quite believe that the atrium was a commercial success. From the day it opened, false rumors circulated. One was that while it was obviously a tourist attraction, no one really bought anything there. Another was that the European retailers stayed only because their stores functioned as high visibility loss leaders. Still, other stories had it that the stores on the ground floor did well, but those on the upper floors did not. As late as 1986, a New York Times reporter came to see me, obviously prepared to do a hatchet job on the atrium. Instead, he did his reporting and ended up writing a front-page business section story about the atrium's extraordinary success. Typically, a suburban mall has a turnover of at least a third of its original tenants during the first several years. Trump Tower lost only a handful of its stores during the first 3 years. More important, no sooner does a tenant leave than he is replaced by one of the 50 retailers we have on our waiting list. Stores with the most expensive merchandise in the world have prospered in the atrium. Hello to Aaron in the chat who says Kamala ain't winning. We'll see. Have a wait and see, right? Not every quality retailer has found the location appropriate, of course. The best example is the experience of Lowe, the leather goods retailer, which was among the atrium's first tenants. Lowe had beautiful merchandise, but it turned out that while a wealthy woman might pay thousands of dollars for a piece of jewelry or an evening gown at a shop next door, she was not willing to shell out $3,000 for a pair of Lowe's leather pants, no matter how soft and buttery they might feel. So Lowe's didn't do well. But in the end, everyone came out okay. Asprey, which was doing very well next door, took over Lowe's space. Lowe, therefore, got out of a long-term lease. Asprey got an additional 4,600 square feet it very much wanted, and I got a great new lease. One last element helped make the Trump Tower deal a huge home run, and that was something called a 421-A tax exemption. Ironically, getting my 421-A ended up taking me longer than it had to assemble the site and complete the entire construction of Trump Tower. The city enacted the 421-A law in 1971 to encourage residential development. In return for improving a site, developers were entitled to an exemption from real estate taxes over a 10-year period. Every 2 years, the exemption decreased by 20%. Everyone who applied for the 421-A exemption got it, almost as a matter of course. Then I came along with the Trump Tower. Oh, excuse me. What are y'all talking about? Who's Dana? Dana who? The only Dana I know of is Dana Carvey. There was no question that I was entitled. I was proposing to take a 10-story building in a state of disrepair and to build in its place a multi-use 68-story, $200 million tower. Unlike the tax abatement I'd gotten on the Grand Hyatt, where I was forgiven all taxes, the 421-A program wouldn't exempt me from taxes currently being paid on the site, but it would exempt me from an additional taxes attributable to an increased assessed value on the site. Who could argue that I wouldn't be improving and better utilizing the site with Trump Tower? Ed Koch could, for one, and the reason had nothing to do with the merits of my case. It was all politics. Koch and his deputies sensed an opportunity they couldn't resist to position themselves as consumer advocates, taking on a greedy developer. From the public relations perspective, I was vulnerable. It was quite obvious that Fifth Avenue wasn't exactly a marginal neighborhood, and that I'd probably succeed with Trump Tower even if I didn't get a tax exemption. But in my mind, none of that had any bearing on my legal right to a 421-A exemption. In December 1980, I applied for a 421-A for the first time. A month later, I met with Tony Gleedman, Commissioner of the city's Department of Housing, Preservation, and Development, to make my case in person. In March, Gleedman and the HPD turned my application down. I called Koch and I told him I thought the ruling was unfair, that I wasn't about to give up, and that the city was going to waste a huge amount of money litigating a case I'd eventually win. Oh, here we go. That's rude, Mr. Mad. What the heck? Coach? Is it Koch? And Koch? No, I think it said Coach. People have given me different ways of spelling or pronouncing it in chat, so I don't know. He was the mayor of New York for a while, wasn't he? All right. In April 1981, I filed something called an Article 78 proceeding in state Supreme Court, seeking to have the city's ruling overturned. The court found in my favor, but an appellate court reversed the ruling, so I took my case to the state's highest court, the Court of Appeals. In December 1982, nearly 2 years after my original application, the Court of Appeals ruled 7-0 that the city had improperly refused me an exemption. Excuse me. But instead of simply ordering the city to expedite my exemption, the court told the city to reconsider my request. Koch? Is that what you're saying, Ed Koch? Okay, so they did and turned me down again. I know. I was so outraged that the cost of the litigation was beside the point. We refiled an Article 78, and exactly the same scenario unfolded. Okay. We won in Supreme Court, got overturned at the appellate level, and ended up again before the Court of Appeals. My lawyer, Ray Cont, did a brilliant job arguing before 7 justices with so much as a note. This time the court again ruled unanimously that we were entitled to our exemption and ordered the city to provide it without further delay. That was just the icing on the cake. By this time, Trump Tower was an unqualified success. It had given me visibility and credibility and prestige. It was also a great success financially. The way I figured it, the entire project, including land, construction costs, architecture fees, advertising and promotion, and finance charges, cost approximately $190 million. The sales of apartments have so far generated $240 million. Meaning that even before including revenues from the stores and offices, we have earned a profit of approximately $50 million on Trump Tower. I also earned more than $10 million in commissions as a sales agent for apartments in Trump Tower. Finally, the rent from office space in the retail atrium generates many millions more a year, almost all of it profit. Ultimately, Trump Tower became much more than just another good deal. I work in it, I live in it, and I have a very special feeling about it. And it's because I have such a personal attachment that I ended up buying out my partner, Equitable, in 1986 What happened is that Equitable put a new guy in charge of its New York real estate operation. One day this fellow called me up and said, "Mr. Trump, I've just been looking over the books, and I'd like you to explain why we're spending so much on the maintenance of Trump Tower." We were, in fact, spending nearly $1 million a year, which is almost unheard of. But the explanation was very simple. When you set the highest possible standards, they're expensive to maintain. As one simple example, my policy was to have all of the brass and atrium polished twice a month. Why, this fellow asked, couldn't we save money by polishing once every couple of months? At first I was civil. I tried to explain that one of the key reasons for the success of the atrium is that it was so impeccably well run. I also said that I had no intention of changing our policy, and I suggested to this executive that perhaps he ought to take a day to think about whether he really wanted to push it. Ooh, I like his style. He called me back 24 hours later, and he said he'd thought about it and he did want to go ahead with cutbacks. That was probably the end of my partnership with Equitable. Much as I liked Equitable, I wasn't about to tamper with something so successful just to save a few bucks. To do that would have been totally self-destructive. I was upset, but I was also philosophical. I went to my friend George Peacock, the head of real estate at Equitable, and I explained that we had a problem and that there didn't seem to be a way out of it. Therefore, I wanted to buy out Equitable's share. In a short time, we made a deal, and I now own Trump Tower outright. After we'd signed the contracts, I got a letter from George Peacock, who ended by saying, "As with most things in life, time calls for change, and it is best to accept that fact. Nevertheless, I shall always be proud of my involvement in the creation of Trump Tower and fondly remember how we worked to bring it about." I was very happy to get that letter. It was a classy way to conclude a partnership that had been a class act from the start. I'm not reading your dirty comments about. I know what you're making jokes about a particular person. Well, that was chapter 7. The bathroom stall doors went all the way to the floor. That sounds nice. All right, so we're on chapter 8. Chapter 8 is gaming, the building of the boardwalk. I know, I can't stand a cheap MFer. If I got a call like that and I was running a place like that, or I built something like that and somebody was like, "Can't we just polish it every few months instead of twice a month?" I'd be so disgusted. Because cheapness always costs you in the long run, It does. It really does end up costing you more in the long run to be cheap. Do things the right way, be thrifty, don't be, irresponsible, but quality is worth paying for. And don't try to cheap out on something that you need to invest in. Oh, okay. All right, let's hear about the building of the boardwalk. The first time that the economics of the casino gaming business really came home to me was one day late in 1975. I was driving along in my car to yet another meeting about the Commodore Hotel deal when a news report came on the radio. Hotel employees in Las Vegas, Nevada, the announcer reported, had just voted to strike. Among other consequences, the stock price of Hilton Hotels, which owned 2 casinos in Las Vegas, had dropped tremendously. By this time, I knew something about the hotel business, but I was still stunned. How was it possible that the stock of a company that owned at least 100 hotels worldwide could be hurt so badly by a strike against just 2 of them? When I got back to my office, it took only a small amount of research to find out the answer. Hilton, it turned out, owned more than 150 hotels worldwide, but its 2 casino hotels in Las Vegas accounted for nearly 40% of the company's net profits. By comparison, a hotel such as the New York Hilton, one of the biggest in Manhattan and one I'd always assumed was a huge success, accounted for less than 1% of overall Hilton profits. It was a sobering thought. For nearly 2 years, I'd been working day and night to try and build my own huge hotel on 42nd Street. I wasn't getting my approvals, I wasn't getting my financing, and it seemed highly likely that the whole deal was going to fall through. Now, for the first time, it occurred to me that even if I finally got the hotel built and it became a major success in the greatest city in the world, it still wouldn't be nearly as profitable as a moderately successful casino hotel in a small desert town in the Southwest. By this point, I had invested a great deal of time in the Commodore deal, and I tend not to give up on something I've started. But what I did shortly after I heard that radio report was take a trip down to Atlantic City. A year earlier, a referendum to legalize gambling throughout the state of New Jersey had been badly defeated. Now, a new initiative was on the 1976 ballot to legalize gambling solely in Atlantic City. It certainly seemed worth checking out. I've never had any great moral problems with gambling because most of the objections seem hypocritical to me. The New York Stock Exchange happens to be the biggest casino in the world. The only thing that makes it different from the average casino is that the players dress in blue pinstripe suits and carry leather briefcases. If you allow people to gamble in the stock market, where more money is made and lost than in all the casinos of the world put together, I see nothing terribly different about permitting people to bet on blackjack or craps or roulette. To me, the key question about legalizing gambling in Atlantic City, or the key questions about legalizing gambling in Atlantic City were economic. Was the timing right? Was the price of entry reasonable? And did the area make sense as a location? Atlantic City is 120 miles from New York City on the south shore of New Jersey. And once upon a time, it was a great resort and convention center. But when the convention business shifted to bigger cities in warmer climates, Atlantic City fell on hard times. I wasn't prepared for how badly things had deteriorated. It seemed almost like a ghost town, with burned out buildings, boarded up stores, and the feeling of despair you sense immediately in places where a lot of people are out of work. Ironically, the prospect of legalized gambling had already sent Atlantic City land values soaring, particularly along the boardwalk by the ocean. Speculators, everyone from large public companies to fly-by-night con men, had moved in like vultures. Families living in tiny homes that they couldn't have sold a year earlier for $5,000 suddenly found themselves being offered $300,000, $500,000, and even $1 million. It was a little ridiculous, and I decided not to be one of the speculators. I didn't like the idea of putting up a lot of pure risk money. Say, for example, I paid $500,000 to buy a piece of property before the referendum. If it failed, my $500,000 investment would drop in value to almost nothing the next day. If the referendum passed, that same piece of land might cost me $2 million. But I thought it was a better bet to pay more for a sure thing. The economics of a successful casino operation are so strong that paying a little more for a good site would eventually prove to be a small expense. Hello, Latin A, who is in the chat. Is Zenny here? Shout out to Zenny, I didn't see. The chat's moving kind of fast for me tonight, y'all. And I'm trying to get through the book quickly. I mean, we'll see. We're not going to get through it tonight, but we have many more of these streams to do. Sure enough, the referendum passed in November 1976 and was signed into law by the middle of 1977. By then, however, the Grand Hyatt project was finally moving forward, and the price of land in Atlantic City had become more astronomical than I had anticipated. Just as I'd done 5 years earlier in Manhattan when prices seemed too high, I decided to stay on the sidelines a little longer. I knew that if I was patient and kept my eyes open, a better opportunity would eventually arise. Nearly 3 years passed, but finally, in the winter of 1980, I got a call from an architect I had looking out for me in Atlantic City. He told me that a certain prime piece of boardwalk property I'd always been interested in might be available. The timing couldn't have been better. For one thing, the first wave of euphoria about the casino business had passed, and times were tougher. A few casinos, resorts, Golden Nugget, Caesars, were doing terrific business, but the more recent ventures had run into all kinds of problems. Is there a Caesars in Atlantic City? When I went to Las Vegas, I stayed at the Caesar Hotel. Is that the right? Yeah, it was a Caesar. It was all Roman styled. It was fun. I haven't been to Atlantic City. My aunt told me she went recently and won like $500 or something like that. I would love to see, Caesar's Palace, that's what it's called. Morrissey was playing there, so I went down to see him. He was playing at Caesars and I stayed at Caesars. It was fun. It was a nice experience. I didn't gamble though. I feel like I had so much fun, but like, I don't know. Didn't end up gambling. There's so much else to do, like what with shopping and delicious food and shows and spectacles. I don't know. I'm just enjoying the room. The room was fabulous. The bathroom was awesome. Loved that bathroom. Loved taking a bath in that big tub. I want a tub like that that just like is so huge. Well, anyway. Okay, let's see. Excuse me. Bally, the newest casino in town, had come in at least $200 million over budget. The Tropicana facility owned by Ramada Inn was experiencing severe construction delays and enormous overruns. Bob Guccione of Penthouse had announced plans to build a boardwalk casino, only to find after acquiring a site that he couldn't get financing. Hugh Hefner's plans for a Playboy Hotel casino fell apart after he was turned down for a license by the Casino Control Commission. A half dozen lesser-known players had come riding into town with great plans, only to be derailed by trouble with financing and licensing, or intimidated by the huge cost of building a hotel casino. Atlantic City's reputation had also been hurt by corruption charges growing out of the FBI's abscam sting operation. In 1980, the vice chairman of the Casino Control Commission, Kenneth MacDonald, resigned after admitting that he'd been in the room when a $100,000 bribe was passed to a local politician by potential investors looking for help in getting a casino license. To make matters still worse, the winter of 1980 had been particularly harsh. freezing cold and so windy that in January and February you could barely stand up on the boardwalk. Suddenly, a city that had been very hot for several years turned very cold, literally and figuratively. No one was talking about building any more new casinos. It seemed possible that the gaming business in Atlantic City was going to prove to be seasonal at best, enough to sustain only a few casinos. In my view, however, that translated into an opportunity. The worst of times often create the best opportunities to make good deals. Here we go. They have a bacon wrapped pizza at Little Caesars. I don't even know where a Little Caesars is. I haven't even done the, that Domino's order that went viral recently. People have been going ape for that. I thought about it might be good to do a Domino's order. I do like their pan style pizza, and it's been a while since I've had one. But we'll see. We'll see when I next feel the urge for some, greasy pizza. What do you mean, Mr. Mad? What are you talking about? Why would he be disappointed? Yes. Yes, I do see that, Stacy. Yeah, I do see that. The Little Caesars tend to be that way. Is it his favorite pizza? Well, that just means there's more for him. I won't be nibbling off of his. Oh. He is rather dear. How sweet to think of him in a Little Caesars t-shirt. Oh, I didn't know that. Y'all, why? I mean, I'll eat some of it. It's black. I bet it looked really nice. Yoda, please. Let me get back into my book. Okay, let's see. The 2.5-acre piece of property that I got the call about was at the center of the boardwalk, just off the main road leading into town from the Atlantic City Expressway. In addition, the site was directly alongside the convention center, the largest space available for conventions and major entertainment, and a potential funnel into any casino built next door. I was convinced that there was no better casino site in town. Perhaps not coincidentally, it had already proved to be one of the most difficult to assemble. By 1980, everyone and his uncle had tried, and the result was a legal mess: fragmented ownership, overlapping agreements, disputes over options, liens on individual parcels, and warring factions. The status of the site seemed almost impossible to comprehend, much less to untangle. Every lawyer and real estate broker I spoke with told me flat out that if I really wanted to build a casino in Atlantic City, I'd be far better off purchasing a site that was already assembled. I listened to the advice, but I wasn't convinced. What do you, I don't understand. Oh, nice. I'm not reading that out loud, Yoda. Latin A asked me if I like going down on Caesar. I don't know if she means like eating Little Caesar's pizza or performing oral on a emperor of Rome. Yeah, I don't know. Matthew says he's gonna. Yeah, I've been very tired with the election too, Matthew. And shout out to Matthew who joined the chat. Yeah, I'm gonna be very. I don't know. Tomorrow's gonna be, yeah, tough. Tomorrow's gonna be tough. We'll get through it. Too bad I'm dead set against them. Well, everybody else is, and their mom is going to be streaming. I don't want to do it too. And honestly, I find the elections kind of, the energy is just so intense, like the day of and the day after. I don't really do well with it. I mean, it's been intense here, all the boarding up of all the businesses. And yeah, it's just, and just knowing that no matter what happens, there's going to be riots. It's just, it's stressful. It's stressful. I can't, like, I just want to kind of bunker down and, like, write it out. I don't really want to be, I don't want a bunch of eyes on me, I guess, that day. Yes, let's pray for the tards. Lord, I want to lift up the tards. You're going to make your Wagyu steaks. I got some steaks. They're not Wagyu. I'm not really good at cooking steaks, but I was like looking at the meat and I was like, oh, that's a good deal. They're nice little steaks. I really should eat more red meat. So wish me luck with my little steaks, y'all. They look like nice cuts. Not too fatty. I don't know what kind they are, though. Well, anyway. I'm going to make 2 of them tomorrow, I think. Make 2 of the steaks and have some, like, veggies with them. Do a steak cooking stream. I'm not cooking. No. Should I broil them, like, in the oven? Like, how should I cook them? Like, all I've got is, an oven and, like, pan. Or should I, like, grill them in a pan? I don't eat steak, really. I know Wagyu is fatty. I don't have another pan, so I should sear it in a pan. Sunny said, dear Lord. Mr. Matt says, good Lord. I don't cook steak. I've never really cooked it. Like, I want to get into eating it, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I should sear it in the pan. I'll watch some videos and I'll figure out how to cook it. Okay, guys? I'll be okay. I'll cook it in some butter. It'll be okay. Here, let me get back to my little book. What? Someone got to teach me something. I know. We get views. Please only sear it in the pan. Wait, okay. I do have a cast iron skillet, golden roll. I should cook it in the cast iron and baste it while I cook it. Okay, well, I know to baste it. Yeah. Y'all, I'm not going live. I'm not setting up my stream in the kitchen, eat it raw. Ugh, I can't, honey. I would if I could, but I can't. Okay, I'll cook it in the cast iron with some butter. I'm not streaming it live, guys. Make a steak tartare. I do like steak tartare. I can definitely make a sandwich, Matthew. My sandwich making skills are on point. My steak cooking skills, however, do not really exist. So, not some PB&J. I don't make PB&J, really. If I do jam, I'm going to have it with like cream cheese, probably. I don't like peanut butter and jelly together on a sandwich, really. Although I don't know, maybe I used to enjoy making it like grilled. You do a PB&J and you don't like, oh, I like it when somebody else makes it for me. I don't know about making my own steak tartare. But yeah, when you take the PB&J and then you put it in the buttered up pan and you grill it on both sides and then it's all hot and runny. That's kind of sweet. That's kind of good. But yeah, I don't like peanut butter and banana. Well, I do cook burgers. Burgers aren't a problem to cook. I don't think I even have any peanut butter in the house. I don't eat a lot of peanut butter. I don't like it very much. It's like one of those things I'll get like a craving for every now and then. Peanut butter, bacon, and banana. Okay, that I could see how that would be good. Yeah. Bacon does go well with the sweet and the savory. Yeah, I can see how that would be good. Salty and like sweet. You can't be trusted with peanut butter in the house. Oh my goodness. You're an adult, you can eat whatever you like. Okay, well, I'm looking forward to the steak. I also got I thought I'd do the steak and I got some mushrooms and garlic to have with it, fry that up alongside it. But then I also got some new buldak bokumyan. So I thought I'd do the steak and then have my like cheesy buldak ramen. So I don't know. That sounds like a nice meal. Yeah, all of that. I like cashew butter. You like pickle spears with your sandwich? Do you like chips on the side? Yeah, cashew butter is yum 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 yum, heavenly. We some hungry people here. I'd love some pistachio butter actually. I love pistachios. Do you think so, Stacy? Oh my. I like pickles. Do you like pickles on your sandwiches sometimes too? Yeah, Stacy is going hard. Stacy went hard. Yeah. Yeah, pistachios are delicious. I've never had pistachio butter though. I know it sounds like too good to be true. But it's not. It's a real thing. It's a real thing and it's out there and we can eat it. We can eat it and love it. Yeah, macadamia. Why don't they make macadamia butter? That would be good. Oh, that would be good. Yeah, I like pickles. Mm. Well, after I figure out this steak thing, then I'll be able to make steak sandwiches, I won't just have to rely on, lunch meats and making like various spreads and things to put on the sandwiches, I'll actually be able to like do a steak sandwich. I've got some pecans in house. I bought a big tub of them. I tell you guys about how I went out to feed the squirrels the other day. It was Saturday. I went out to the park. I went to go get a coffee, and then I brought like this little container of pecans because, I feel bad every time I go to this park and the poor little squirrels are out there, and, I'll say hi, and they clearly want you to give them something because this park is renowned for squirrels getting fed, by people. And then I'm like, sorry, I don't have anything. And they're just like, or I'll try to give them, if I have like a pastry or something, I've tried to give them bits of that, but they're not into that. They want nuts. So I got the pecans. I go out to the park. I've got my coffee, which was not made very warm, I have to say, but they were busy, so we let it slide. Anyway, there was so many people out in the parks, like it was unreal. They were having some kind of food festival, and there were all these like mobile food carts set up and like a massive queue of people going around one of the old churches. I was just like, okay. And there were no squirrels out whatsoever. Oh, shout out to Peanut. Rest in peace, Peanut. I was surprised Peanut didn't get more coverage from Nick today. I was surprised. I thought Nick would do a whole like expose on the Peanut story. Poor Peanut. That's so sad. Sad. No, but like really, it is very sad. It's like it's so evil. It's so evil. Like on so many levels, it's evil. Like snitching and like just overreach and poor thing. Yeah, it makes me mad. Yeah, probably, Matthew. Play on people's emotions. Well, my emotions were distraught by it. I mean, nobody wants to see an innocent animal put to death, Like, I think that's really what it comes down to. Why is this poor animal that's already in a position of kind of being under human care, like being killed so needlessly? It's horrible. All right, where was I, y'all? Okay. First of all, I always believed in going after the best location, if you can get it at a reasonable price. Secondly, I have an almost perverse attraction to complicated deals, partly because they tend to be more interesting, but also because it is more likely you can get a good price on a difficult deal. Had I tried to assemble the same site back in 1976, the story probably would have been very different. At that point, I had yet to build anything in New York, and no one really knew who I was. But by 1980, with the Hyatt under construction and the Trump Tower project announced, I had a much higher profile and a lot more credibility. When you're negotiating with people who've been promised the world a half dozen times and gotten nothing, credibility is critical. The site consisted of 3 large parcels, each one owned by a different investment group, as well as a half dozen small homes owned by individual immigrant families. The key to putting the deal together was making every parcel in the deal contingent on my getting all of the others. The only chance of building the great facility I envisioned was to put together the whole site. The last thing I wanted to do was invest a lot of money and then find myself squeezed at the end by one holdout owner who understood the value of controlling the final piece in a puzzle. That's what happened to Bob Guccione. On the site next door, to this day, underneath the rustling frame of an unfinished building, there remains a single-family home that Guccione never managed to purchase. Even if he'd gotten financing, he would have had a problem. Imagine spending $300 million or $400 million on a gleaming, glamorous new facility, but building it around a rotting 5-room shack. Instead, I set out to leverage my credibility. I told the owners of the sites that I was prepared to make a fair deal, and that, unlike all the others before me, I was going to follow through. I pointed out that I had a strong track record when it came to developing property. I also suggested that I might be the only person around who still had the inclination to put this deal together at all. If they couldn't come to an agreement with me, I said they might be sitting on their property for many years to come. The major part of the deal was for the 3 large parcels on the site. The groups that owned them were known as SSG, Magnum, and Network 3. And I negotiated with the principals of each group myself. Rather than trying to purchase the pieces outright, I sought very long leases with options to purchase at a later date. My strategy was to keep my upfront investment down, and also to avoid seeking major financing at a time when banks were very wary about Atlantic City. In the case of leases, I could carry the costs myself. My pitch was very simple. I was prepared to buy them out quickly and cleanly. They in turn had to cooperate with me and with each other, so that all closings could be simultaneous. They also had to drop the lawsuits they were waging against each other over prior attempts to jointly sell or lease the land. I did not want to get involved down the road in a legal morass. The properties I bought outright were the individual homes. I hired local people to negotiate on my behalf because many of those we were negotiating with were immigrants who spoke very limited English and weren't used to dealing with outsiders. Other developers had paid up to $1 million for tiny plots in strategic locations. Because times had turned bad, I was able to purchase nearly all the houses at much more modest prices. You think so? Do you think it's the same company, Rome? Oh my gosh. By July 1980, we had all the pieces in place. I remember closing day very well. We had arranged simultaneous closings beginning on a Friday afternoon. In the offices of one of our attorneys in Atlantic City, the closings went on around the clock. It took 28 hours before everything was signed and sealed. At that point, we had a room full of people almost delirious from exhaustion, but I controlled the best site in Atlantic City. Before I could move forward, I still had to get financing, architectural approvals, and licensing as a casino operator. More important, I had to decide whether the timing was right to undertake this huge project. Fortunately, I didn't feel pressed to make any quick decisions. It was true that I had several $1 million invested, including lawyers' fees, preliminary architectural drawings, staff costs, and purchase and lease of land. But I was very confident that if I wanted to turn around and sell my assembled site to someone else, I'd get a great deal more for it than I'd put in. There are always buyers for the best. Rome has a radio show. I didn't know Rome had a radio show. I would listen to that. Although I think she likes some metal, I probably wouldn't like that. Oh, I love when people react to music. I remind you of Adrian on Rocky. That's interesting. I've never seen Rocky, guys. I've never seen Rocky. I know that's probably wrong of me. There's many movies I haven't seen, but yeah, Rocky is one of them. Ah. At that point, we had a room full of people almost delirious from exhaustion, but I controlled the best site in Atlantic City. Before I could move forward, I still had to get financing, architectural approvals, and licensing as a casino operator. More important, I had to decide whether the timing was right to undertake this huge project. Fortunately, I didn't feel pressed to make any quick decisions. It was true that I had several $1 million invested, including lawyers' fees, preliminary architectural drawings, staff costs, and purchase and lease of land. And I was very confident that if I wanted to turn around and sell my assembled site to someone else, I'd get a great deal more for it than I'd put in. There are always buyers for the best. In the meantime, my first priority was to get licensed by the Casino Control Commission. I'd followed Atlantic City closely enough to know that the licensing process could be very long, very difficult, and very unpredictable. Playboy and Hugh Hefner, for example, were turned down for a license because the company had allegedly paid a bribe 20 years earlier in order to get a liquor license for the Playboy Club in Manhattan. When Hefner testified in New Jersey, he took the position that he'd actually been shaken down for a payment and that neither he nor Playboy had ever been charged with a crime. Even so, his license was denied. The state official who cross-examined Hefner said afterwards that several commissioners hadn't liked Hefner's demeanor and style on the witness stand. I don't believe he helped his case when he walked into the hearing in Trenton, New Jersey, with blazing pipe, silk suit and shirt, and a blonde bombshell at his side. The licensing process is very subjective. If his savvy daughter Christy had been involved at the time, perhaps the outcome would have been different. Yeah, I can't imagine a bunch of licensing commissioners would take very kindly to that kind of thing. I mean, y'all drop a link for Rome's radio show. If you got a wrench, drop a link. Much more serious allegations of connections with organized crime had been raised against several other applicants. Caesars and Bali were among them, but nonetheless, they both eventually got licensed. What became clear to me as I watched the licensing process was a pattern of something I call bloodletting. In exchange for a license, applicants were regularly being forced to offer up at least one sacrificial lamb. At Caesar's World, it was the Perlman brothers who had to resign from the company. And at Bally, it was William O'Donnell. But unlike a large public company, I couldn't afford to sacrifice anyone. I had to demonstrate an absolutely unblemished background. The first thing I did was hire a lawyer to represent me. Nick Ribis was originally recommended by the Newhouse family, for whom he'd done a lot of work. I have great respect for the new houses, and when I met Nick, I liked his style. He was probably 30 at the time, but he looked years younger. The first thing I said to Nick was, "Look, I'm just not sure a lawyer as young as you are can handle a big project like this." Nick wasn't thrown. "To tell you the truth, Mr. Trump," he said, "I've never had a client as young as you who could afford my bill." Ooh. Oh my goodness. It's so wild in my chat tonight. Oh my goodness. Oh. Okay, let me adjust here. Nick and I agreed immediately on a strategy. I'd hold back on any construction until we got a decision on licensing. It's okay. Don't feel bad for me. Don't feel bad for me, guys. It's my little show. I'm not confused. I'm okay. I just can't keep up. And you know what? Y'all are here to have fun, and I'm here to do what I'm here to do. In every previous situation, companies who purchased or assembled sites in Atlantic City had begun the licensing process and construction concurrently. Licensing could take as long as construction, and the sooner the casino got built, the faster it could start earning money. It's perfectly logical, so long as your licensing comes through in the end. But unlike these $1 million at risk in the meantime, but unlike these other companies, I didn't want to put several $100 million at risk in the meantime. Also, I didn't want to be in a weak negotiating position with the Casino Control Commission. Once you've begun investing huge sums of money, it's very hard to say no to anything they ask for. Waiting to get a decision on licensing meant paying carrying costs on my land a little longer and postponing profits, but it seemed more than worth it. To this day, not many people or companies are willing to go through the nightmare of licensing in New Jersey, which gives Nevada a big advantage in attracting new investors. My strongest card was the fact that construction of new casinos in Atlantic City had come to a complete standstill. Of course, I support a Rome 13 show. I wish you all wouldn't make fun of me. Why? Why? Ugh. Y'all, everyone else here. Okay, let's see. State and city officials I knew were hungry for new evidence that Atlantic City was still a good investment. Because my credibility as a major builder had been established, I was confident that state and local officials would be receptive to my constructing a major casino hotel in Atlantic City. I didn't want to be in the position of pleading with anyone. At the very least, I wanted to make a deal as one among equals, all with an interest in making the project work. By this time, I brought my brother Robert aboard to work with me on the project. Unlike me, Robert decided after graduating from college to work on Wall Street, perhaps as a way of getting out from under the family shadow. He started in corporate finance at Kidder Peabody. 3 years later, he moved to Eastville Realty, and for the next 5 years did corporate real estate finance work. Finally, he moved to Shearson Loeb Rhodes, where he set up a real estate finance group and ran it very successfully until he joined me. I think both of us always assumed that eventually he'd come back to the family business. Atlantic City was the perfect opportunity. I was looking at a potential investment of $200 million in a town 120 miles from New York City, where I couldn't possibly be hands-on every day. What I needed was someone totally competent, totally honest, and totally loyal to oversee the project. There's nothing to compare with family if they happen to be competent, because you can trust family in a way you can never trust anyone else. Interesting. I called Robert one evening in May 1980. We talked for several hours in my apartment, and by the next day, he'd agreed to take over day-to-day responsibility for Atlantic City. Among other things, that meant we'd both go for licensing. On a February morning in 1981, Robert, Nick, Ribis, and I drove to New Jersey for a meeting with the Attorney General of New Jersey and the head of gaming enforcement. I was very respectful, but I was also very blunt. I said that I was prepared to make a major investment in New Jersey, my own money, not corporate money, and that I'd already invested several $1 million on my boardwalk site. What concerned me, I said, was that New Jersey had acquired a reputation for making it very difficult for any developer to do business in the gaming area. Licensing investigations had dragged on for 18 months and more. Much as I wanted to build a great casino on the great site I'd assembled, I said I had a very successful real estate business in New York, and I was more than willing to walk away from Atlantic City if the regulatory process proved to be too difficult or too time-consuming. The bottom line, I concluded, was that I didn't intend to invest any more money or to begin any construction until I got a decision one way or the other on my licensing. The Attorney General said to me, "No, Mr. Trump, you're not right about New Jersey. The licensing process can work here efficiently. I can't give you any promises about the outcome of your investigation. We may find that you're not licensable. What I can promise you is that if you cooperate fully, we'll give you an answer one way or the other in 6 months." Then he turned to the director of gaming enforcement and said, "Isn't that true?" The director tried to walk a tightrope. "Well, we'll do our best," he said, "but it may take a year." At that point, I jumped back in. "Well, if it takes a year," I said, "then I'm out of here. I'm prepared to cooperate fully, but I'm not going to sit around twiddling my thumbs waiting for answers." The Attorney General nodded and his director agreed. It was clear that 6 months was our timetable, and they would try very hard to meet it. The next thing we did was to sit down with the members of the Casino Control Commission staff. In order to build a casino, you need approval on everything from room size to casino layout, from the number of restaurants to the size of the health club. Our intention was to provide the regulators with detailed building plans and architectural drawings well in advance of our construction, so that before we got started building, they'd have a chance to review our plans and tell us what changes they wanted. Other operators experienced in running casinos, but not in building them, hadn't bothered with this sort of planning. In a rush to get their facilities up and open, Many began construction before they got final approvals, only to have the regulators show up and say, no, this room is too small, or no, this slot machine needs to be there instead of here. From long experience, I know that mid-construction changes are extremely costly, and perhaps the key reason so many major projects suffer huge cost overruns. You know, guys, I think this is a good spot to stop my reading for tonight. I'm finding myself a bit tired. I haven't adjusted to the change yet. So I feel like, I don't know, I should probably get myself, off to bed at a good time. I also want to have a productive day tomorrow, so I don't want to be too sleepy. Did I, Calvin? Well, I'm going to bed now, so maybe his views will jump. Wait, hopefully. He does a good show on Mondays, doesn't he? He has like all kinds of gimmicks and things going on. It's interesting. We taking a shot? I've been sipping on this. I actually don't like it at all. They just came out with it. It's like a strawberry vanilla Evolution brand real fruit soda. I guess it has real fruit. It's gross. I'm gonna finish it, but it's not like what I wanted. Stacy. Stacy asked if I mailed in my ballot or dropped it in a box. I dropped it in a box. And hopefully no, Palestine weirdos will try to corrupt my vote for some reason. I guess they found that there was some sort of materials that were placed with the fires that were started that were related to Palestinian or whatever, Mr. Mad. Mailing it, do you think mailing it in would have been better, guys? I took it to the box last night. I'd forgotten to take it or mail it out, so taking it to the box was the best way to get it, in quickly. We don't have voting in person in my state, Mr. Mad. You can't vote in person. It's not possible. Yeah, I figured it would be better than mail. And like honestly, most of the ballots were fine that were affected by the arsonists. So, I just wasn't too concerned about it. Apparently in Washington, the devastation was a lot worse. And they weren't able to figure out all the ballots that were damaged. But here the box had some sort of anti-flame. What is the word I'm looking for? It had some sort of built-in fire retardant in the box. So I guess they anticipated things would be set on fire. You're voting in person tomorrow? I know, Mr. Mad, you're voting like old school style. You're voting like they did it back in the good old days. He's going in person and going to cast his ballot. Well, I wish you luck with that. Yeah. My state is red, but my city is blue. I think my states kind of split down the middle, like Chirac. 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 I don't know why that's giving me such a chuckle. M is not Mena. M is not Mena. You're the second person to think M was Mena. It's not. Mena is Mena. What are you doing, you yakking? You yakking, my little kitten? Chirac. Wait until Toucan's meows before going to bed. He was meowing pretty heavily. What you doing back there? He was meowing pretty heavily when we went live. My phone going off here. Hold up. Oh, wow. I missed another strange call. Let's see where it was from. Yeah, Phoenix. Getting all these calls from Phoenix, from Sierra Vista, from San Manuel. Like, constantly. And of course, no voicemail at all with them. All my calls are strange. I don't know about that. Ay. Well, there he meowed. Did y'all hear him meow there? I guess it is time. You like it better when Mayna's here? Whoa, 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 whoa. You just knocked over my can. Thank goodness there's nothing in it. You. I love you. What a good kitty. Y'all look, he's a good kitty. Look at this good kitty. You see this good kitty? I'm so lucky. You want me to get off of here and go to bed? You want us to be cozy? You don't want me chatting? Hmm. I love you. I love you. Do you feel the chat energy? Oh wow, you guys, you got to see his toothless mouth. Did you see it? You showing off your toothless mouth? Was you showing off them gums? You were showing off them gums? What a good kitty. What a good kitty. What a good kitty. What the best kitty. Yeah, he's amazing. I love you. Oh, what a good kitty. The cat with dentures. That's funny. How are you going to have a cat wear dentures? They're not going to put up with that mess. You show off them gums. You were showing off them gums, wasn't you? You were showing off them gums. You were showing off, wasn't you? Mr. Mad wants me to look up the Jesus Christ, I love you, God, dude. Yeah, what do you think? Oh, Phil's live. Oh, I'm loving Phil's coat. Dang. That is a sweet jacket. Y'all remember Phil who came on the channel? I don't know what's coming up here exactly. I don't know if it's what you're talking about. Why is Neutral Milk Hotel? There's a Cholo. I wonder if this is the guy. No, he has claws. I wouldn't, he got claws. I mean, yeah. Mentors is live stream. They go over to Mentors. This is the dude that came up.
Put on salvation as your helmet and take the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God, Jesus Christ. So put on the armor of God, Jesus Christ. We love you, God, so we do it for God, Jesus Christ. Belt of truth, Jesus Christ. So we do it for. We love you, God. Chestplate, Jesus Christ of righteousness.
What do you think about that?
We love you, God. Shoes of peace.
Yeah.
On the enemy. God. Jesus Christ, we love you, God. What we do it for? Shield, Jesus Christ, of faith, voice.
Whoa, what a
Jesus
leap.
Christ.
That was
We love
such a
you,
good
God.
leap.
The helmet of salvation. Jesus Christ. Look, there's the enemy. Look, there's the enemy. So we hold up the sword of truth. Jesus Christ. We love you, God. Shield of faith. Jesus Christ. And we fight that holy war. And we win. Jesus Christ, I love y'all. Jesus Christ. Continue fighting that good fight and loving each other. And just letting everybody know that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. And all those who come to him will live eternal in heaven. Jesus Christ, I love y'all.
Nice.
I pray to God every night.
Well, that was nice. Thank you. Pop lock-in with the full armor of God. Not bad. Not bad. That was a good way. I think that was a good wrap up to the stream, y'all. Well, I hope you all have a good night wherever you end up, whether it's with Mentors or Josh or Philip Chandler or some other thing, or maybe you'll go to bed. But whatever you do, have a good night, and I'll see you around. Thanks for being here while we get through the art of the deal. Good reading tonight. A lot of good advice. Great insights. Trump 2024. All right. Good night.